Only a few days remain before the legislature completes its regular 60-day session on March 8th. So let's talk about some of the highlights of the session. First, the Hirst Decision. Talk about that.
Well, the Hirst solution, of course, John, was one of the biggest challenges we had down here. It's what basically shut things down last year, as you may recall. It's what stalled the capital budget from getting through the system. But this year, we're able to get some cooler heads together and solve most of the problem. The biggest problem that was still left out there is the Skagit basins, Wyris 3 and 4, in Skagit County, part of Whatcom, and Snohomish County. We didn't get that one done. It's based on a lawsuit between a tribe and the locals up in that area, and that one became something that was a non-starter. That being said, we're not done there. We still have some efforts that are being made within the budgets, both the capital budget and the operating budget, to deal with part of that solution down here, and we're hoping for the best there.
With a Hirst decision in place, the legislature finally passed a $4.1 billion capital budget that prioritizes K-12 school construction and also moves forward some other projects that had been put on hold. So how significant was that, especially for your district?
Well, for our district, it was pretty big. You know, this was a record large capital budget for us. It was about $4.4 billion we're talking about in the capital budget for the underlying budget. And so we're seeing school construction all over the state in areas where we've been lacking. But there were some other projects, and I actually have a list of them here, because our district's rather vast, and there's been some projects that for us have been very important. And so I kind of want to read over a couple of those. We have, in the SULTAN area, we've got a new safety center that's going in. In MONROE, we've got one of those artificial turf fields going in. Interestingly enough, that valley is just a mud pit. Now, when I played ball, we loved playing in the mud, but they want to use it year-round, and so we put an artificial turf in the budget there for that. And we've got the Darrington Rodeo Grounds as something that's been falling apart for years, and it has become an unsafe situation. So we've got money going into our Darrington Rodeo Grounds. And then, of course, out in Cedar Woolley, we've got this beautiful Veterans Memorial Park that's going in. We're able to secure funds to pay for the bathroom facilities out there. It's a several hundred-acre park, and I'm going to put a little plug in for that. Great place if you want to take the family and visit. Plus, it's in memorial to our veterans that we have out there. And then another big one that's kind of a sweet spot for me is the Arlington Boys and Girls Club. We've had some issues amongst our teens as they're growing up and needing a place to go and stay away from the gangs and the drugs. And the Boys and Girls Clubs have done a phenomenal job in our communities, and so we were able to help with that one as well.
The legislature also received some good news on February 15th with a new revenue forecast for Washington State. What did we hear on that?
Well, we're bringing in about $1.3 billion more than we thought was coming in. And I think that's important for us to think about. $1.3 billion that was not anticipated. We've heard, all of us have, in the news and from the governor's office and from a lot of folks, that we need to have a carbon tax. We need to have a state capital gains income tax. All these tax proposals, which are hundreds of millions and in some cases over $1 billion in tax increases, keep getting talked about, and I'm saying, why? We've got all this money coming in without doing anything. Furthermore, many of these taxes are going to be very damaging, especially to our middle class and the most impoverished parts of the state. And so, as I've said for years, and I'm going to keep saying again, we do not have a revenue problem. We've got more revenue coming in than we ever could have hoped for. We have a spending problem, and it's based on how we prioritize our spending down here.
And another highlight, the legislature also worked to address the growing opioid problem.
Opioid and heroin are huge issues. That's why I added heroin in there. Heroin is becoming a massive, massive problem for us. And when you talk to law enforcement, not only in our district, Snohomish and Skagit counties, but all over the state, the heroin issue is just a growing epidemic. And opioids, yes, are absolutely a part of that. And we were able to, in Snohomish County anyway, which is representing a tri-county area, the Island County, Skagit County, and Snohomish County area, we actually are putting in place a pilot project. And I want to give some kudos to Representative Hayes out of the 10th Legislative District. He's a sheriff's deputy for Snohomish County, and he came forward on an effort that was put together by our county, by a lot of our healthcare community, everybody related to this whole problem of drug abuse and whatnot. And we've got a building in Snohomish County, actually in Everett, that with this pilot project, we will be able to bring these folks in as they're detained and be able to get them through the system properly. But it's not just a bag them and tag them where you bring them in and you put them in jail because that's the cheapest place to put them. This is actually, how do we deal with their addiction? What kind of addiction is it? Is there mental illness involved? What kind of a drug? The detox, the counseling, all of that in one center. And right now we've got all eyes focused on Snohomish County because it's the only one of its type in the state that was ready to go. And a lot of counties are looking at this, hoping for some great success.
So as we finish this session, what are some of the final thoughts you'd like to leave for our viewers?
Well, look, we try very, very hard to deal with the challenges and the issues back home every year. But for us to be successful in doing that, it's all based on communication. And I get our communications, I take that very seriously. I get emails, phone calls. I even get some snail mail from time to time, which is actually quite an anomaly these days. But with that communication coming to us and us being able to have that open dialogue, it helps us to do a better job in representing you. So my hope would be that you'd pay attention to the email at the bottom, the phone, my phone number at the bottom of your screen there. If you've got something going on back home, for me to do my job as your state representative, I need to know what it is. So please feel free to communicate with me every time.